Hey folks, this is Amber Insights. I'm Zori Amber, and today we're talking about another mental health profession. This is part of a multi-part series that's looking at different mental health professions, what they do, the education process, and how that looks like. Just basically to help people understand the differences between the many different mental health professions that are out there as careers, such as counseling, psychology, social work, and many more. So I hope you find this interesting. I hope you find this helpful, and let's get started. So today we're going to talk about two mental health professional pathways that you could possibly take if you want to be a mental health professional but work in schools. One, we're going to talk about school counselors, and two, we're going to talk about school psychologists. School counselors are another group of mental health professionals that you could possibly look into in terms of going into a career in mental health. School counselors are sometimes referred to as career counselors, college counselors, elementary school counselors, and guidance counselors. School counselors mentor and counsel students from a range of issues, such as schoolwork, behavioral issues, psychosocial issues, emotional issues, either individually and or in groups. School counselors also help their students with class scheduling and also career and educational goals. School counselors can be trained to administer tests. School counselors can be trained to identify and counsel students with special needs. And not only do school counselors work with students, they also work with teachers, parents, and school administrators. So in terms of the education of a school counselor, it's similar to education of a clinical mental health counselor. It doesn't really matter so much in regards to what your bachelor's degree is, though having a bachelor's degree in either psychology, social work, or counseling is helpful. What really matters is your master's degree. Having a master's degree in school counseling is important, though depending on the state, there may be other requirements that's necessary, including licensure. But once you get your master's degree in school counseling, then you, similar to clinical mental health counseling, you apply for the school counseling licensure in your state. As I said before, like with other mental health professions, the licensing process looks different from state to state. Something that is important to note is that the licensure for school counseling is different from the license from clinical mental health counseling. Again, that can depend on the state, but typically what happens is if someone is interested in being a school counselor, but also wants to either leave room for the possibility of having a private practice outside of the school, or they want to do both school counseling and private practice counseling or some sort of other form of clinical mental health counseling outside of the school. Typically what they do is in their master's program, they do a dual track of clinical mental health counseling and school counseling. That does sometimes make the master's program a little bit longer for them, but there is a lot of overlap in the courses. And once that happens, then again, you need to apply for both school counseling licensure and clinical mental health licensure as well. So there are some people who do both, or who like to have the option of both. But again, depends on the state. School counseling coursework can look similar to clinical mental health coursework. The main difference is that there's more of an emphasis on child and adolescent development and educational perspectives in school counseling coursework. Coursework includes theories of counseling, ethical and professional issues, multicultural counseling, skills, foundations of school counseling and school practicum, child development, career development, and trauma and crisis counseling. So similar to clinical mental health, school counseling's master's program usually takes around 2 to 3 years of full-time study. Also, similar to clinical mental health programs, you can typically find school counseling programs using the CACREP website. Also, if you're interested in finding programs and learning more about what school counselors do, there's the American School Counseling Association, or ASCA, that you can look at. They'll have details about standards of school counselors, information for school counselors, professional development for parents, for school administrators, all that type of stuff. And it's also an association that school counselors can join to stay up to date about school counseling related issues and news. So let's review. School counselors mentor and counsel students on a range of issues from schoolwork to social, behavioral, psychological, and emotional problems, either individually or in groups with students. And they can also help students with class scheduling, career, and education goals. School counselors also require about 2 to 3 years of full-time education in a master's program. And once they complete their master's program, they can apply for licensure and then apply for openings in schools. School counselors is one path that you can do if you want to work in a school and be a mental health professional. Another pathway is to become a school psychologist. So, if school counselors focus on improving students' mental and behavioral symptoms, both individually and in groups, then school psychologists focus on understanding their students' behavioral and academic issues through testing, research, and assessment. Like many mental health professionals, the responsibilities of school counselors and school psychologists can overlap. So, coursework for school psychologists include Principles of School Psychology, Child and Adolescent Development, Psychological Testing, Crisis Intervention and Prevention. So here's something interesting that I found when I looked into the training and education of school psychologists. What's really interesting about school psychologists is that unlike school counselors who just need a master's degree, school psychologists can either have a master's degree and be on the specialist level, or have a doctoral degree and be on the doctoral level. A specialist level is basically having a master's level degree with 1,200 hours of internship. A school psychologist at the doctoral level can either be a doctor of philosophy or PhD, a doctor of education or EdD, or a doctor of psychology or PsyD. At the doctoral level, a school psychologist needs about 1,200 to 1,500 hours of supervised internship, though some programs and some states require up to 2,000 hours of supervised internship. And unlike the specialist level of school psychologists, it takes about 5 to 6 years to graduate with your degree in school psychology at the doctoral level. So let's review. School psychologists focus on understanding their students' behavior and academic issues through testing, researching, and assessing. They also work with a few students with specific and targeted issues, and they also collect and analyze academic behavior data for individuals and schools. There are 2 levels that a person can reach as a school psychologist. The first is the specialist level, which is master's level that takes about 3 years of full-time graduate study and 1,200 hours of supervised practice. And the doctoral level, which can be completed with either a PhD, an EdD, or PsyD, that takes about 5 to 6 years of full-time graduate study and up to 2,000 hours of supervised practice. One thing that I know about school counselors and school psychologists, depending on the state and depending on the school district, and also based off of the experiences of my colleagues and friends who are school counselors and school psychologists, is that sometimes school psychologists might work at different schools at the same time with different students, while school counselors typically work in one school. Again, this can be different in different states and different school districts. It really depends on the funding of that school district and that state. So something just to be aware of, something to look into for your specific state or school district that you're thinking of applying to as a school counselor or school psychologist. Okay, so basically we talked about school counselors, who they are, what they do, and we also talked about school psychologists, who they are and what they do as well. Hopefully this information can be helpful for people who are interested in being mental health professionals, who work in education, who work in school settings, to figure out whether they want to be a school counselor or school psychologist. And yeah, before we end, feel free to check out my first video on clinical mental health counselors, who they are, what they do, and what their training looks like. Also, don't want to forget, please like and subscribe this video so I know that you like it. Feel free to leave comments, and also remember to hit the bell button so that you can be notified of future videos when they come out. I'll see you next time. Bye.